Surely one of Australia's most iconic species, the koala is renowned for its sleepy nature and its love of gum leaves. This remarkable marsupial draws millions of visitors to our nation's zoos and sanctuaries. But while we marvel at them in these isolated refuges, are we missing the bigger picture? Outside of captivity, the koala's natural habitat is changing rapidly, with land clearing, feral animals, busy roads, and climate change shaking the foundations of this species' survival. This is the story of the koala.
My name is Steve Phillips. I'm a specialist koala ecologist. I've been working with this animal now for nearly 40 years. Today we're standing in the Burleigh Ridge Conservation Park on the Gold Coast in southeastern Queensland, and we're going to be talking about factors affecting koala conservation, trees they like to eat, and the sort of things that are causing problems for them in the future. Koala is without a doubt probably one of the best known of the Australian marsupials, loved the world over, and it's one of the reasons why so many people come to Australia. Most people know that koalas spend a lot of their time asleep. The reason they do that is because when you live on a diet of eucalypt leaves, you might as well live on a diet of cardboard. That's about how much nutrition is in eucalypt leaves. And so you've got to eat a lot of them, and you've got to become an energy miser. And that's what koalas are very good at. So they sleep 18 out of every 24 hours. They're very picky about what they eat. Where we're standing today, there's only 4 preferred koala food trees, and that's the Queensland blue gum, tallow woods, grey gums, and swamp mahoganies. They have a lot of investment in the raising of their offspring. So a little joey, as most people call young marsupials, is about the size of a peanut when it's born, makes its way to the pouch where it spends nearly 6 months. It then comes out of the pouch, lives on its mum's back for another 6 months, and then will live with her as it gets ready to go out into the bigger world, probably at around about 18 months to 2 years of age. When you devote that much energy into raising your offspring, it really means that you're sensitive to change and disturbance because you've got such a slow reproductive rate. And that's one of the things that really affects this species, is that its ability to respond to dramatic change in its landscape is very complicated by the sort of life that it leads. Distribution-wise, the species generally occurs mostly along the eastern periphery of the Australian continent. In that area, more than 50% of its habitat has already been removed, and we know that probably around 60% of the habitat that remains is empty. So that we've now looking at a species that's probably lost around about 75% of its habitat in this country. We've gone from populations that would have been in their millions down to, arguments and estimates vary, but probably somewhere between 1 and 300,000 perhaps. And what's happening as a result of fragmentation is that those populations are now represented by little pockets here and little pockets there. And so each of those pockets has its own sense of vulnerability. Some of them are located near urban landscapes, and so they're continually being impacted by domestic dogs and motor vehicle strike. Some of them live in state forests where logging of their preferred food tree tends to turn those landscapes into hostile environments for koalas. Some of them in the western areas are so prone to fire and other aspects of climate change that they're losing habitat and losing their occupancy quicker than they can replace it. So everywhere we tend to look, we can see problems. When we look at the species throughout its remaining range in eastern Australia, we know that 30% reduction in the area occupied has just occurred in the last 20 years, and that the general trend is one of increasing decline. And so the challenge ahead of the scientific community, the challenge ahead of society full stop, is to try and stop that decline, arrest it, restore habitat, and allow these animals some chance at a sort of a viable future. Even the person in the street can act responsibly with koalas. You can look after your dog, you can lock it up overnight so that it can't wander into adjoining bushland areas. You can engage at a community level in encouraging slower vehicle speeds in areas that have koalas living in them. You can become more knowledgeable about their food trees and seek to preserve those and get them planted out in the landscapes. We have to all work together with a common vision. If we continue on the pathway that we're going, we continue to ignore advice, and we continue to ignore the science, we will lose this animal, and that will be not just so much a tragedy for Australia, that will be a tragedy for the world.